Wow, it's me. And it seems that the microphone is working. I've got some water. Yesterday, all my troubles seem so far. Yesterday, what did I do? Oh yeah, I made a little mesh class and made the rooms fill out a mesh of vertices and did indexed rendering, and that was super productive, I guess. But we can do more because I want to get some 3D models in here. A good chum of mine has made a chaise longue 3D model for me, which is a good number of triangles, and I want to load a few of these in, start rendering them all over the place. So that should be a bit of fun, but none of that's going to happen quite yet. In fact, there's really no way to even load up another model or really place another entity. So we really need to have a look at what's going on. So let's look at the script that controls the game at the moment. Oh yeah, and before I continue, as always, I'm taking song quests. Right. Been thinking a lot about the rendering and how exactly to fit it together, and I vaguely know what I'm doing, but I don't have a good direction. Often what helps with that is just to go forwards anyway and see where you end up. Then again, that's what I did with the proof of concept engine test thing, and I got into enough dead ends that I decided to re-implement it. So maybe forwards isn't necessarily the best direction. However, it's certainly a direction. So what have we got here? We're going to load our special little library. Yeah. We're going to make a player. We're going to set the position of the player to be 0, 0, 0. And set the camera to be the player entity. Then here's the update function that's called every frame. And this just deals with moving the player around when you move the mouse or press the keys. So that handles the flying thing. And just to show you how do you do yeah, that's it. Lua has a cool thing, which is, if you're not familiar with Lua, a comment is dash dash. That's like your slash slash in C or C++. And you can do dash dash, and then double square brackets are for doing like a block. You can use that for strings, or you can use it for comments. So if it's a comment with a block, then it's a block comment, which goes just for the dash, just for the square brackets. Which is kind of like your slash star and star slash in C and C++. But you can also put any number of equal signs inside between the two square brackets to make any number of types of block comment. So you can put a block comment around another block comment. It's just beautiful. It's truly, like, if you've ever used a bunch of C and you block commented something instead of putting an if-def, and then you were like, oh, I also want to block comment out something else, and then it all gets tangled up, and you're like, wow, this is not the right way of doing it. Yeah. in Lua, you can just do it. I do maintain that Lua is one of the most elegant languages out there, even though it's very domain specific. And people don't like it because arrays start at 1 and they struggle with letting go. But secretly you can start an array at 0 in Lua if you want to. No one's stopping you. Okay, so if I do take that out, just and save the script, then indeed we are stuck. The keys don't do anything. The mouse still looks around because that's a property of the camera rather than the camera entity, which isn't terribly sensible, but whatever. I don't care. I'll do whatever I want. Okay, so what might be nice is if I created just something, let's call it furniture. It's going to have a position. And if we look at what things are available in the component wise, then it's just the position and the physics. So there's no good components right now. Well, let's just say it's got a position. We'll add in another component to hold model information. Whoa, there is a fly in here. Unbelievable. I could tell you the story of the fly. There's actually a lot of them. I've got rid of most of them. But there was an apple. The apple was left for a very long time underneath a table behind me, behind a cardboard box. Oh, it was quite an old apple. So much that it turned mostly liquid. Yeah, and then I put the underfloor heating on because it was cold, and I was like, oh, ooh, what's that smell? It smells funky. Anyway, after that there were a lot of flies, and I think it may have been related to the apple. Which just shows you never trust apples. Okay, so no, we're not going to set position of player, we're going to set position of furniture. And here we highlight exactly what's wrong with this set position. Sure, maybe it's fine. Okay, let's just say we set the position to, what's the room's like 32, so let's give it 8 from the end. That's 24. 24. Oh no, but it's divided by 2. And 10. Okay, cool. So we've set furniture to be somewhere in the place. And presumably that'll work. But there's two problems. The first is that we have no way of seeing furniture, the entity we just made. And the other one is we can't actually place it anywhere but in this room, in this reference frame, in this part of the country, localized entirely to this room. We can't put one in here, we can't put one in here, there's no reference frames. And it would be really nice if there were reference frames. So what I'm going to do is let you set the reference frame via Lua. And jeez, get away! You're ruining the stream and no one's watching, so it doesn't really matter. Yes. So two things I would like. Right here. One is set reference frame for furniture to something. Okay, I'm going to comment that out because it's not going to, it doesn't exist yet. And the other thing is I would like to set static geometry on furniture to be, you know, some models. I have a picnic table somewhere. And probably with textures. .obj files I think are quite easy to read. But because they're plain text. They specify vertices and indices and UV coordinates and a few other things, which is pretty good. But they also come with MTL files, which are like material files that specify how materials are laid out, which I could also support, or I could ignore and set up my materials myself. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. But I think we need these two functions before anything meaningful can happen. Now, how do I want to set the reference frame? Now, I could set... what could I do? So I've got two basic ideas. One is you say, hey, your reference frame is going to be, you know, positive W, positive X, blah, blah, blah. Just like it's done in C++ side of things. So it's a one-to-one mapping. The problem with that is, or sort of generalized problem, is that the reference frames aren't terribly meaningful. All the rooms are in different reference frames. It's not like if I say, hey, on the positive X side, I want to be moving towards the positive Y side on my Z coordinate or whatever, you know, it's sure, fair enough. I have trouble visualizing what that could really be. So I don't get a strong vibe that that's a useful thing to put in. I don't see myself ever sitting down and typing in a bunch of reference frames just off the top of my head and saying, hey, yeah, this thing should be here. What I can see myself doing is flying around in-game and swapping reference frames around or something. Maybe. The other idea I had was mapping reference frames to integers, so, you know, you would have something like 6024 would be starting reference frame, just based on, you know, this enum 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just making it decimal. Then if I really wanted to type something in, I could. And it's just a lot shorter. It's also a lot, yeah, it's a lot easier. I don't know, it's just an integer. That's what I'm tempted to do because it makes the scripting slightly lighter. I don't want to have a bunch of enums and so on. So well, let's just do that. I just opened the wrong file. This is a file. Here's a reference frame. I'm just going to make a function. I'm just straight up going to do this. Encode reference frame to an integer. Maybe I should always have it as an integer. No, that would be silly. Plus I'm going to do this not completely bit packed. Not that it ever is at the moment, but I'm just going to multiply things by 10 simply because there's only 8 of these enum values, 0 to 7. So I guess I could specify an octal. Does Lua have octal support? I think it does. Really? Oh, I think it does. A00446. Yeah, it didn't like that. Yeah, that didn't. Oh, it can print stuff out in Lua. In Octal. What literals? What literals does it support? What if hexadecimal with a exponent? Very nice. Yep, but it does not support octal. Well, good. That was a silly idea. No octal. It's not 1970 anymore. At least I hope not. That would be very strange and pretty darn confusing. Well, that's cool. So, I mean, I'm just going to say, yeah, it's RF side times 1000 plus RF x times 100 plus RF and y times 10 is RF dot mz. It's a really bad encoding, but it's going to spit out some integers that are really easy to read, you know, like 7, 1, 2, 4 or whatever. So, you know, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I don't care. Right. We're going to make a reference frame. We're going to return. Oh, what the? My shift key is broken, as anyone who's seen any of these streams would already know because I mention it every time. Yeah, let's do this differently. So what we will need to do is a little bit of checking. So side needs to be valid. None of them need to be congruent, and then once I've got them all, I need to calculate the chirality of the reference frame. So this is actually a pretty complex situation. Oh, how do you even calculate the chirality of it? Unless you know the basis for a certain side. it's going to be really difficult. There's no bases here that are stored inside the world in this mode, so you can't... No, but the chirality is fixed. If it's left-handed or right-handed, I don't need the basis to work that out. I just need to work out... Oh gosh. Oh, it's not easy. So anyway, I don't care about error correction right now. Well, let's get... This is not particularly efficient. Like, I could bit shift it and do stuff if it wasn't all multiples of 10, but none of these should be congruent. If none of them are congruent, it's a valid reference frame. I could at least do that check. Just checking a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. It's just checking congruence between any of them. So you can't have the same axis in two different locations. They're all going to be different axes. And the actual validity that you want to assert is that they are all I mean, I guess I could just do a validity function and then I can valid what's they're from 0 to 7, so it's literally just 3 bits. Hex 7. Oh, why am I doing that? That doesn't make a difference. Oh yeah, there's a validity. Okay. I did more checking than I ever really thought I was going to do. Let's calculate the chirality while we're at it. Why not? Why not? Right. Okay. We calculate the chirality of a reference frame. How do you do that? Well, that's easy. No, wait. No, it's not. It's the exact opposite of easy. So, you start off with some reference frame. Say it's like a XWY or something. positive, all of them. You can swap two of these as long as you negate one as well. It could be any of them, I think. Let's check that with some hands. So, 1, 2, 3. Let me just check my cameras. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's swap 2 and 3. Oh, it negates the other one. Or let's swap 2 and 3, but negate 2, so... No. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Or let's swap this one. So, well, that's what I did. Let's swap the other one. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. I'm just convincing myself. If you swap 2 and negate 1, then your chirality stays the same. Now, so all I gotta do to find out if it's the same as the base chirality is are the number of swaps and the number of negations required to get there of the same parity, as in if there's one swap and one negate, or like they're both odd or both even, then the chirality is the same. Okay, but what are the basis vectors? They're just like a bunch of random vectors. They're not in any specific meaningful context, are they? Let me just take a second to look at this. I'm going to make these basis vectors into something meaningful. So I've got x, y, z, w, and they're all negative. Then x, w, z, y. Can I just flip these two and make one positive? In fact, I can make two of these positive. And it doesn't really matter about the flipping, because 2 flips is the same as 0 flips. You just flip something and flip it back. And by flip, I mean taking 2 axes and swapping them around. What is this? X, Z, W. There's 2 negatives here. I could just make them both positive. Once again, X, Z, W, Z, X. Well, why don't I change this to X, Z, W so that they're in like order, and flip 1 to positive. X, Y, W, that's good. W, Y, X. See, I can... I don't know how I got to these basis vectors. There's no real pattern to them that I can see. X, Y, Z, yeah, that's cool. X, Y, Z. And one of them has to be negative. I feel like this is definitely wrong. Okay, yeah, I can't just make that function do that. That's silly. Well, I changed a bunch of the reference frames around. Let's see. of course, it doesn't care because, I mean, the rooms are probably in a different orientation. If you're particularly eagle-eyed viewer, maybe that means something to you. Let's check positive x is opposite negative x, positive y is negative opposite negative y, w's are opposite each other, positive z and negative z are negative opposite each other. So it seems like that I didn't screw that up. Out of interest, what if I had screwed it up? How would I... Let's just see what happens if I make one that's just the wrong way around, and that's on the negative y room. Okay, yeah, that room is very much inside out. Yeah, that's broken. Okay, that's cool. So I didn't screw up. But why are some of them different? X, Y, Z, W. X, Y, Z, W. Y, X, Z, W. Y, X. So this one, the positive side has a negative. This one, the negative side has 3 positives. This one, the positive side has 3 positives. The negative side has a negative. I was staring at it as if a pattern will leap out as to why sometimes the negative side gets the negative, sometimes the positive side gets the positive. Well, it's not really obvious to me. I might... Is this necessarily better than that? I don't... I don't have a good reason to change it, which makes me think I should not change it. Negative, positive, negative, positive, positive, negative, positive, negative. Yeah, okay. Oh, what the hell. It's okay. I changed it, and let's not just ditch that. Oh, but this stuff down here is totally related to that. So yeah, I should not just randomly change things. Okay, go away. Go away, stupid code. This is a bit fragile. Let's just not mess with something, but especially to understand. So can we recalculate the chirality easily? I couldn't really understand why different reference frames had different amounts of positive or negative axes anyway. It's almost like if it had a reference, a reference frame, it could calculate the chirality of the reference frame off the reference frame. Okay, so what I'm going to do is not recalculate the chirality, but I'm going to leave a comment saying fix chirality. One thing that could be a good idea is to make the chirality, or make the basis reference frames more intrinsic, because at the moment they're just populated here But then again, if I ever want to do something that's more than just whatever, then I don't want to get stuck. Although I feel like that could be a little more than these matrices. This could all be. Oh, the basis size and the actual size of the reference frame could be hard-coded per direction. The basis. See, maybe. Anyway, I did write the thing to encode stuff as integers. Get reference frame. I'm going to put a get function in. I don't know how well we tested this stuff, but it's probably worth doing a getter for. It's been bitten all over the place, these midges, little flying guys. Got a little paddling pool. Well, it's quite a big paddling pool for the kids, but it's too cold nowadays. I think it's just making a lot of insects appear. Slightly chlorinated. I put a little chlorine floaty thing in it, but I don't know. We want to return world registry only for that ID. Get the position out, and from the position we just want to return reference frame. But no, that's actually completely wrong. What we're going to do is we want to encode that reference frame as an integer. So we're just returning an integer. And I'm going to do set reference frame entity ID int ref worlds registry only ID, and we're going to get its position, assuming it has one. Otherwise, that function's not going to do a lot. And then we're going to go and we're going to decode into that reference frame the ref that we got, and if that works, PRF is RF, and it's not even going to touch the position. You just teleport to that reference frame. Cool. Do these work? Okay. Well, let's say we're going to get rid of this test function that just puts blocks everywhere. I'll leave it. It's probably going to get its comeuppance at some point. So I'm trying to think of it. Okay, see if it's full. So I want to test exactly this condition. If you press the mouse button, it'll make it do stuff. So if TP, then set reference frame for the player to the reference that we have stored, which we haven't stored yet. How do you do else if? Else ref is get reference frame for the player. Okay, there we go. We got a little teleporting thing. Instinctively I hit compile even though that is a script. So if I go here and click, and then I go to some other room. Boosh. Back in that reference frame. What if I go like this? Oh, and store it like that. And now, bang, back in that reference frame. Very good. Boom. Cool, we can set reference frames. Let's also print reference frame. Is that how you print stuff in Lua? I think it is. Okay, let's put something in the reds room here. Boosh, 7521. Would you look at that? Now we can just set that reference frame right there. All done via those little scripts. Easy peasy. Okay, so now we've got an entity, we've placed it somewhere in a certain reference frame, but now we also need to set its static geometry to something, which I think is going to be a picnic table, because that's something that I already had in the old one. Picnic face. I think that this one also had scripting, although it wasn't. Oh, it's got poop. It was nowhere near as clever or as well thought out. And for some reason the variables or the entities are called poo. And look at that, I did this differently, I did it like that. Oh, that's not terribly good. Interesting. I'm just going to copy data models picnic face into the new one, into the data directory. Okay, I'm just going to stick it in there. And let's have a look at what picnic face is. Well, first it's got a bunch of lines that start with V, which means vertex. And then VT is vertex texture coordinates, I guess. One for each of them. And then VN, vertex normal. Well, there's not many vertex normals, is there? Oh, okay, let's have a quick. Okay, it's a pretty long file. I mean, you can almost understand it straight off. V defines a vertex. VT defines a vertex UV coordinate, and I guess N is normal. And then F must be a triangle. The fact that the first one is 1, 1, 1 implies that these are 1 indexed. In fact, if we try and find 0, okay, there's no zeros, so yeah, it's 1 index, just like Lua. Where is that bit? Yeah, well, here's the second one. So here's a number. The third one is always smaller, so I guess it's vertex coordinate, texture coordinate, normal. And these MTL must be material stuff. So in terms of parsing, that doesn't look difficult. Just read each line. I guess if you care about different objects or materials, okay, that's a comment. Easy peasy. See, this is debatably a very good file format because it's so easy to understand. You can understand it just by looking at it. The hell was that? Is there something underneath the floor? I'm on the ground. I'm in a shed. There shouldn't be anything underneath there. That's very creepy. It's probably just a hellmouth opening. That always happens. Okay. So load up a bunch of V's, VT's, and VN's. They're all very easy to parse. Then when there's an F line, you break it up into 1, 2, 3. And interestingly, though, okay, so you can have the same vertex with different normals. Okay, so combining into an element index array thing might be a little bit tricky. Not totally, but maybe just a little bit. In any case, I don't know if it should just be set static geometry. Okay, first of all, geometry is the wrong word. It'd be like a static mesh or a static model. Geometry, everything is geometry. It's a 3D, 4D, 4.5D game. Yeah, geometry is quite ubiquitous. Just looking at the script for the other one, the engine test, it did say it was just set an asset, which might be good. I could set an asset for furniture, and it's just going to be just like this. Maybe with a table of stop. No. With a, like some parameters there. Or just the whole thing is parameters. Okay, well, for now, there's just going to be these. So like that seems fine. But I'll need to start implementing more bits and pieces to make this. What's this world concept? This is from way back in the day. From streams and streams ago. I think you have served your purpose. Nice. I'm just going to make clean, make sure it still builds without that file. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. Right here. Right now. Whoa. Yeah, that doesn't work right now. So I call a function that doesn't exist. That file's gone. I don't want to concern myself with its. That sentence was finished. Sorry. Okay, let's just make a asset, and it can be component too. Cool. Now you can't use a standard string or anything in there. So let's put an asset ID in there for now, because I don't know what I'm going to put in there. But it's going to be 0, okay? Whoa, no, not assembly. No, not at all. Cool. And if I go down here, yeah. So now I can give it that specific, brand new, brand spanking new, awesome component, and it also doesn't like that at all, because that function still does not exist. Let's make that function exist. So after simple physics, let's start. Just breaking these down. Just sort them out a bit. The buttons are built in. Set asset, and it's going to take an entity ID, and it's going to take a string, and then it's not going to do anything. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. Okay, it's happy. It's happy once more. Oh, this is convoluted already. Okay, so we've got an asset. Dear streamer, I'm a high school student trying to learn C++. I learned syntax but have no clue where to go from here. What did you do after learning how to program? I practiced for a very long time and then I got good. And every time I thought I was good, I learned that I still wasn't. I'm still not good, so. Yeah, if you know the syntax... C++ is a very difficult language. But, you know what I did find was really helpful was reading code that was good code. It was a while ago now, but the source code for the game Quake was released, and I read through it and understood how it was done, the sort of ways they went about things, and that was really quite enlightening. Not every project has good code like that. That's a very well coded piece of software. Um, but yeah, code things. If you like, there's lots of open source projects. You could try fixing a really simple bug in something that you like, or even trying. There's a lot to getting good at development. Just knowing the syntax is like cool. That's like knowing, you know, what sounds the keys on the piano make and what the names of the chords are and stuff, but it doesn't let you make music. That is simply something that you can only get through experience. At least that's my opinion. I've met some really good programmers in my life. I wouldn't count myself as them, but I've met some really good programmers, and the one thing that I've noticed about good programmers is they do a lot of programming. So they're also kind of, I think, predisposed to the mentality, like their brains work in the right way. But even with that, they programmed a lot. Like they would program during lunch, they would program at the weekend, they would program in the evening. That's just all the time, and they would get very good at it. Okay, I wanted to tie this asset into... Oh, no worries. Trying your best. Yeah, that's all you can do, really. Don't let it get to you. That's another thing. I've known some bad programmers in my time, and the ones that I always find aren't the best are the ones that get really like messed up when stuff is really complicated and they get ragey, or which is fine. I'm not saying they're bad programmers, but it's like a puzzle very often, and you can't solve it by getting super like emotional, super angry. It's always good to take a break. And speaking of assets, what am I going to do with this? I guess I should just chuck it over to the rendering engine. Oh, I could just say load asset? That seems wrong. But whatever, let's just say that's what it does. That's gonna... Okay, wait, this actually needs to set it on the entities asset. Yeah, there we go. Hooray! I feel like this is somewhat just throwing the problem elsewhere. Okay, so that returns an integer, load asset, and I really don't think this is definitely not the right place for this, but it'll do for now. Let's go back to my script. What asset did I load? It's not called table.obj. It was called picnic underscore face for some reason. Okay, so I want to load an asset. I guess this is sort of the right place. So I feel like this should have something for like static meshes, something for dynamic stuff like models with bones, particle effects, and it should look at the asset and bounce it to the whichever one. But for now, I guess it's just gonna load. See, the problem here is this is really not quite structured because I need to split render rooms up so that they also have, they supply meshes into one big mesh buffer. So I haven't planned any of this out in advance. I'm completely winging this, which is why I'm stalling a lot and seeming very uncertain. But that's fine. So, well, let's, let's just maybe check that much in. How big is that picnic face file? I don't want to chuck huge stuff into. Gosh! It's 130 kilobytes. It's probably bigger than the entire project. How big were those PNG files? Oh, they were... Apart from one of them, they were all a few hundred bytes. Well, 130 kilobytes is not that big a deal, I guess. Let's just check the diff of what's going on here. So what I'm... you know what? You know what? I said I wouldn't tidy it up, but now I'm going to tidy it up. This commented code is not getting checked in. It's gone grey. Ah, okay. It's just... and this test nonsense can go. You can delete code. Don't worry, it's there in Git if you need it. Right, let's have a look. Oh, that run function should not be checked in. Boop, boop. Okay. It's a lot of different stuff. Oh, I should plug my telephone in. Yep, it is now charging and I am doing something for a second. Okay, it's charging. I'm getting that charge right into my telephone. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that commit so far. You know what, I think I will commit that run file. It's been hanging around for a while. It screws up the mouse capture, but the mouse capture was bad anyway. The fact that I'm keeping it commented out for a long time just shows that it kind of sucked. And it's just... I know I literally just said... My flip-flops come off. There we go. I literally just said commented code can die and live in Git. Well, yeah, that's not... It's good that I commented because it being broken is less broken than it being fixed. basic. Well, I didn't really. Whatever. Commit message is inaccurate, but I never read them. So that's too bad. Okay, this is cool. Right, so what do I actually want? I want a big thing. A big static geometry mesh bucket thing. Just got all of your meshes all of the time. And how is it going to work? So it could be just a class or a struct or whatever. It's going to have a buffer. Or it's going to have an element buffer. So it's a few buffers, OpenGL buffers. It could have the program, the shaders. Or, oh, it's very tricky. So wait, let's have a think. So I definitely want to have one buffer, and it's going to have like room 0, room 1, room 2, room 3, that's, you know, blah blah blah, up to room 7, that's the final room. Then it's going to have whatever, it's going to have a picnic table, it's going to have a chaise lounge, Lanouge, chaise lounge, oh, I got it right I think. And so on. Okay, cool. That's definitely what I want. And then also elements for all these. Okay. Now, if it's just in a big buffer, that's no good, because I also need to know how to render things in the buffer. So, hey, if I rebuild the buffers as well, so if this room 0 changes, I'm just going to rebuild the whole thing from scratch. I could do. The rooms aren't going to change very much, and things, geometry is not going to change very much. If you load new geometry, I guess it could go on the end. Okay, so cool. I've built it. Let's say I've built this big buffer, and now I really want to know what's in the buffer. Almost like I should get a thing that's like, hey, this is coming at you, room 0, and I'm just making it look like code with some funky punctuation, and it's gonna be elements starting from 0. I'm going to plus 0 on them, and how many is there going to be? Like 4,240. That's cool. What about room 1? Elements starting, they're going to start from 4040. You can add like 3,217 or whatever, so that's to do with the vertices. As in what room 1 considers vertex 0 should really be vertex some number, 3,217 or whatever it is. And how many is there going to be of them? You know, maybe there's 6,101. that would be a bit of a... I mean, they should probably be multiples of 3. That's not multiple of 3, and neither is that. Ah, well. Okay, cool. So that's cool. So as it fills up the buffer, it kind of needs to make some things. That's easy peasy. But what does it... How does it... So say it has to rebuild the buffer. Say room 0 is like edited. And it's like, oh no, I need to rebuild all my voxels and they're going to have new geometry, which is even bigger than you anticipated. I think the sensible thing would be to rebuild the entire buffer at that point, which is cool, whatever. In that case, what happens? I don't know. This is really complicated to think about. Yeah, it can rebuild the buffer. So it needs to access all the meshes. There's going to be a bunch of these meshes. Meshes! Well, that's cool. It's fine if there's a bunch of meshes. Boom. Each room could have a mesh, and if it's dirty, you can rebuild the mesh. That's easy peasy. So do I just want something that's like, hey, buffer is a rebuild. Hey, you're going to have a bunch of meshes. And I can go, hey, each mesh, how many vertices and indices do you have? Which it needs to know, because it needs to know the size of the thing. Okay, cool. That's not a problem. And I feel like all the loaded assets should also go in there. Boy. So this is like a half coalesced idea. I mean, this isn't very original at all. This is how every rendering thing works. But I'm really just trying to bring together the concept of different rooms with different objects. So when you load an asset in the rendering engine, that should make an asset which has a mesh. Also the rooms should, or the render room should have a mesh. If any of this is changed, if any of it's dirty, then we rebuild the buffer. And when we rebuild the buffer into these render rooms and into these assets, we put a little thing like this, which is just a buffer state. So they're all updated. That's cool. Okay. Now we're going to go to the render room and say, hello. It's time to prepare for a whole bunch of rendering, and it's going to go, cool. Well, I know my first draw call because I have my own buffer state, but I also need the matrices and the buffer states for any entities inside this room which have an asset loaded. And this is really just for static geometry assets. If it's other stuff, that's cool too, but that will probably need different behavior. So then it's going to build up a list of draw calls, which is going to be like, yo, start this program, bind these things, and then here's a buffer state, which is now, I'm thinking, a terrible name. Element. Sequence. What is it? It's the vertex and element numbers. It's like the state within the buffers. No, I don't like something like state, because everything in a computer is in a state. That kind of just means it's some, you know, buffer index might be better. Indices. Okay, cool. And then the room's going to be like, okay, I'm good, I know what to do. And then it's going to be like, your room, render yourself here. It'll be like, okay, program, bind these things, multiply the matrix through for each thing we render, and then just bang, 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 bang. Draw calls go out. And then it's going to be like, hey, room, now render over here, render over there, render over here. And it can just keep going. Okay, so we need a class to contain assets. Room render needs totally rejigged. We need some sort of draw call or draw manager, which I've alluded to before. See, why this is difficult, because it involves pulling together like at least a bunch of new things all at once. Well, that needs an object loader. We need a buffer for the type of thing that it is. I am too tired now. This is how you know I'm too tired. We need like a buffer. Yeah, just a buffer. Okay, I mean, I could jump in and start doing this, but it's late. The stream's been going a while. Someone even popped into chat. So, it's been a very exciting and busy day. I think I need to iterate on this offline a little bit before implementing it. But this is all reasonably good. When you load an asset, if it already exists, then it just gives you the ID, otherwise it creates a new one, loads the obj into it, and generates the ID and sends it back. Yeah. Okay, I feel like everything's been good, and I'm getting a bit a combination of clarity and judgment clouding, which probably means I've reached my cerebral limit, and thus I should stop. Also, the stream has been going for 1 hour, 23 minutes and 45 seconds now.